Hello, hello, and welcome. Hello, and welcome. I'm so glad that you're here for the Help for Toxic Relationships live stream. We do this every Monday evening at 6 o'clock Pacific time. And this gives you an opportunity to learn about particular topics and then to just jump in and make your comments, ask your questions, be part of this conversation. And you can do that in the live chat. So that's easy to find. It's just on the right side of your page. I will keep track of everything and watch to see when you make comments so that I can answer them. Today we're going to be talking about something that follows on last week. Last week we were talking about things that our parents told us about ourselves that we may not have really known. We'd not really thought about it. It had become part of the fabric of who we are, and we didn't go back and think about it maybe. Or maybe we did. But either way, last week we talked about 12 things that might be in your subtext to your life that came from having a hijackal parent. And tonight we're going to talk about how to undo those untrue messages that your hijackal parent gave you. You need to undo them, and then you need to create new messages. So that's what tonight's show is about. Please say hi in the chat if you're here and let us know if you're a returning guest or whether you have come for the very first time. So use the chat well. That's the way that you can communicate with me directly. Having a parent who's difficult, I call those relentlessly difficult people hijackals. And I created that term because too many people were going to the Google goddess and putting in something, a question, and they forget that the Google goddess is not a psychological professional, not a mental health professional. So the Google goddess as an index just brings back things that kind of match your question. So when you put that in there, it doesn't mean someone has a diagnosis. It doesn't mean that they have narcissistic personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, or borderline personality, or histrionic personality disorder. It means they have some patterns, traits, and cycles of maybe some of those things. And maybe they are diagnosable, but you won't know that unless the person actually goes, and that's highly unlikely. So I wanted to create a term that we could talk about the patterns, the traits, and the cycles that we know they all have in common, and then we didn't have to worry about the psychological definition. So when I created the term hijackal, that worked. So that's my trademark term for these people. And one thing for sure, all hijackals drink from the same pool of traits. So it doesn't matter what fancy labels we give them, they have hijackal behaviors. And that's what we need to learn to recognize. That's what we need to learn to realize comes with verbal abuse, emotional abuse, sometimes physical and sexual abuse. And we cannot be excusing this behavior. We can't be rationalizing it. We can't be justifying it. We need to be recognizing it for what it is. It is at a minimum, and I don't mean to minimalize it, but and if there's no active, horrible physical and sexual abuse going on, it is for sure verbal and emotional abuse. And I know none of us want to think that we're in a relationship where there's abuse, because that kind of means, well, what about me if I'm in this relationship? But the biggest gift that you can give yourself is to recognize that you are in a relationship where these things are occurring, and that you may have accepted that because you had a hijackal parent or you had traumatic experiences in your younger life. And this all seems comfortably uncomfortable but very familiar, and so you don't really stop and look at these patterns and traits and cycles for what they are. They're just part of the fabric of how you've been brought up. So that's why last week we talked about 12 messages that you might have received as a child, and you would never know to go back and have a look at them because those giants, those parents that you had, they told you who you were. They told you what you wanted. They told you how you could feel and what was important. And you learned to dance. You learned to do it their way because intrinsically you knew from a very young age that you needed those people. You know, I said last week that we have to recognize we're not like horses and cows. We don't get spit out of our mothers and licked off, and then we have the ability to jump and leap around the meadow. We don't have that. We know we're a blob. We know that we can't move ourselves, feed ourselves, take care of ourselves, shelter ourselves. We can't do anything. We are completely at the mercy of those giants. And so we want to please them. And then sometimes they don't make us feel very good. Sometimes they make us feel terrible and we think, oh, it must be me. Because brain development when we're little is all about, I cause everything. That's the way the brain works until we're about 4 or 5. We think we are causing everything. We're making them happy. We're making them sad. So we become very hypervigilant about that if we're with a hijackal parent particularly. And so these two live stream shows, one after the other, very important. If you didn't listen last week, go back and listen to that. You don't have to have listened to it in order to listen to this one, of course, but there'll be some really good things for you there if you weren't there. Hi, Alchemy. Yes, good to see you again. And Dana, great. Second time able to join the live stream. So welcome. I'm so glad you're here. So these are important things. And be sure to say hi in the chat just to let me know that you're here and to welcome you because I'm so glad you care enough about yourself to go looking for answers to these things. Do you know, I had 2 hijackal parents. I've talked about that before, but for those people who are new, let me just say I had a mother and a father who were both people with hijackal traits. And I was an only child. So instead of having to share the wealth, I got it all from both of them. And so I really know these things. I had to go back and examine every last piece. And yes, I have a doctorate in psychology, and yes, that's what I've devoted my life to, but it didn't excuse me from excruciating dissection and examination to find out, where did I get the messages of who I am? And of course I went on, as everybody will, almost everybody. If you had a hijackal parent, you're going to have your first relationship, if not your first, second, and third, or fifth or sixth relationship with people just like your parents. And so the hijackal in the dating situation is a chameleon. That hijackal, whether it's male or female, will do everything to make you feel as though they know you deeply and they want you, and that they can hardly wait to marry you, live with you, have babies with you, whatever it is. And so you're drawn to that because of the rejecting parents. And so, of course, the cycle goes on. Anybody had that experience? I had a client who'd been married to 4 different hijackals in a row. And Devin says, hi, Devin, great to see you again. She says, when you are demeaned with a hijackal family, you just don't even see it as an adult. And no, you don't. So don't for 1 minute feel like you should have. When you can, you will. When you have enough information, you will. And then you will change, hopefully. And you will take it in and you will make a difference. And that's what's important. So last week we talked about 12 or more ways that a hijackal parent gave you messages about yourself. Today I want to talk about what can you do to undo those untrue messages. And the very first thing that I ask any of my clients to do, and I have clients all over the world because I work through video conferencing, so I know that they're the same all over the world. The very first thing I ask people to do is they say something to me that is one of those things we discussed last week, and they'll say, I just don't think that I will ever be enough. I don't feel good enough. Anybody had that? Just don't feel good enough. And that's a message that a hijackal parent had to give you because they needed power over you. They needed always to be able to put you down, to demean you, to dismiss you, to discount you. And what hijackal parents won't do is validate you for who you are, what you feel, what you need, and what you want. Last week I talked about a client that I had whose father was a raving hijackal, and he said this most outrageous thing to him. He said, the reason you have such low self-esteem is because you're so messed up. Now, how circular is that? But it is a prime example of how a hijackal parent behaves. So that might mean something to you. Alchemy said, I never got married, and I think it was because I kept dating married men. Now I regret it and not having kids. Well, you were probably set up for that. You were probably set up to have emotionally unavailable parents would have you be attracted to emotionally unavailable men. And that's a whole piece that goes with the territory. And I've done some videos on that, so be sure to look around here on YouTube and find those. Because when we have emotionally unavailable parents, for example, hijackals, we get used to people being emotionally unavailable. And as I said, in our early learning and our early brain development, we think that we cause everything. So we cause them to be emotionally unavailable. And so that colors who we think we are. And we can change that color. We can change everything with willingness and understanding. Are you with me? Do you really understand that you can change everything? Please know that it is something you have a great deal of hope for, that you will in fact be able to work toward. And Dana says, I dated a hijackal, but thankfully I didn't marry him. Yay! Yay! Something allowed you to see that that was really a bad idea, that there were red flags flying and you weren't going to be a flag bearer. So good for you. Anna, hello. I haven't met you before. Welcome. I'm so glad you're with us. And she says, I'm getting a restraining order from my hijackal ex because of what my 12-year-old daughter has recently shared about his behavior. Oh, I'm sorry. His argument in court is that my daughter is a liar. It's sad. Yes, it is very sad. Now, when you are with... When you follow along with me, go to Facebook and you will see that I have a group there. It's called Hijackals and Toxic Relationships. And just join that page. It's not a group, I'm sorry. It's a page. And it's just facebook.com/hijackals. And on there, I put up a bunch of graphics. And one of them just really talks, Anna, about what it is you just said. And what it says is, hijackals don't have love to give you. They have uses for you. Does that ring true? Because the thing we have to realize is they don't have love for their children. They have uses for them. A hijackal parent will only validate a child when the child makes the parent look good. Got that? A hijackal parent will only validate the child when the child makes the hijackal look good. So when we get into the possibilities of parental alienation, then if the child will make the hijackal parent feel right and on their side, they will get validated because they're making the hijackal parent look good. And that really puts the child into conflict because they are half the DNA of each parent and they don't want to be put in a choose a parent situation. So I can understand, Anna, that getting a restraining order when your daughter spoke about his behavior. And then he says to the court that the daughter is a liar. How sad. But I'm so glad that you've seen the pathway out of that, because you need to get your children out of that. Now, that's not a blanket statement on my behalf. There's a time to go. If there's physical and sexual abuse, that time probably. But if there's not that, and it's limited to verbal and emotional abuse, I always tell people, plan very carefully to leave. And we work together to make that plan. And every situation is different. Different ages of the children, different financial status, different everything. So I really want you to think about that. That's really key. And yes, they will lie in court. They will lie in court about anything. Why? Because they must win. They don't care what they have to do to win. So they will lie. They will even lie about their children. They will lie about anything. Back in the day when I used to go to court on behalf of my clients, and I don't do it anymore. I'll write things, but I don't go. It was really difficult to watch the hijackal, and a hijackal will always get a hijackal attorney. Even if they have to fire 3 of them, they will find a hijackal attorney. So now you have 2 people lying to the court. It's very sad. So Anna, I really understand what you're saying. So your child already has some of these messages, and our children have these messages. They were put in there before they have language. And our task, if we have children and in that situation, is to be the person who is not reacting and responding in a negative way or in a similar way to the hijackal as a model for our children. Our task is to rise above that and to be the model of sanity and safety for our children, to give them another point of view on life. Very important. Anna, you're so welcome. If you ever need to talk, if any of you ever need to talk, I have an opportunity for you to do that. The first 1-hour session with me is only $97, so that we can get to know each other and you can get a few answers. And if anybody wants that, you go to FOR relationship help, HELP.com/join. And that will get you directly to the page to get that 1 hour with me for $97. And after that, I work in packages of 8 or 16 sessions. But yes, you need validation. And I think that's what you're hearing, Anna, is the validation that you know what you need to do now. You need to be that amazing model for your daughter. Don't talk about dad much. Validate her feelings, and then say, and how would we like to create it? How would we like to move forward? What is the best way we want to be? What are we going to be examples of? You say to your daughter, and you bond over the way we're going to be in the world. And that's just one way. That's one approach, something you can do, but do that. So let's go back a little. And I'm always happy to interrupt and answer questions, of course. But let's go back to today's topic, how to undo the untrue messages. Because one of the untrue messages might be that you're too much trouble, that nobody's going to bother with you because you're too much trouble. So what happens then is you never ask for help. Because after all, I'm too much trouble. Nobody would want to help me. I would be interrupting somebody's life. And so we get this innate feeling. Anybody have that? That really you shouldn't ask for help. You're bothering someone, you're intruding on them, you're burdening them. And that's because in our early life with a hijackal parent, we were given the sense that we were too much trouble. And so we start to hide out in the shadows and pull back and not ask for what we need and want. So it's a very important thing to understand that you were never too much trouble. They didn't want to be bothered with you. Do you see how clearly those two things go together? You weren't too much trouble. They didn't want to give you any attention. It was about them and their dysfunction, not about you. So as you begin to take apart that untrue message that you have, can you allow yourself to feel like, okay, I was just a kid. I deserved attention. I deserved to be listened to and interested in and taught and taken care of. And I had a hijackal parent who didn't want to do any of that. So, of course, I have to get in touch with the fact that I have a deep thought that maybe I'm too much trouble. And the fact is, you're not. You deserve to take up space and draw breath and ask for what you need and want. I really like to see you just put a yes in there if anything is true that I just said for you, that you feel like you can't ask for help now because you would be burdening someone. Devin says, I was always told that. I was told nobody likes to hear your problems. Great. And how did it translate into your life as an adult? Just everybody think about that for a minute. The message that I got, underlying message, even before I had language, maybe we experienced childhood emotional neglect. I've got a whole podcast on that with Dr. Janice Webb. Great podcast episode. If we experience childhood emotional neglect, then we don't know how to get our needs met because we were never allowed to have needs. So this translates into our experience as an adult. And Dana says, yes. She's nodding to this and says it feels very, this is big. Good for you, Dana, for getting in touch with this. She said, it feels very shameful to ask for help, like I'm failing somehow. Oh, honey, do you see how deeply ingrained that was from a hijackal parent? That you weren't even supposed to take up space and draw breath unless you were showing them up as being amazing parents or people. And so we get to that place, hooked into the hijackal message to us that we were too much trouble, and then as adults we don't ask for help. We feel like we're supposed to be able to do it all ourselves. We're not supposed to be in a relationship with someone. That we don't even understand that a relationship is a joining together, right? Oh, hello, measure twice. Glad to see you again. She says, that is so right. I don't even know what my needs are most of the time because you weren't allowed to have any. You were made wrong for having any needs because that would take attention. And I don't want to give you attention because it's all about me, hijackal parent. It's all about me. And now you want something? How dare you? How dare you? And so you said that so right. I don't even know what my needs are most of the time. That comes from having a hijackal parent. Because you weren't allowed to have needs. You were never validated for your needs. Did you ever have that experience I spoke of last week where a hijackal parent will say to their child who's crying, they'll say, what are you crying for? If you're going to cry, I'll give you something to cry about. I'll be the one who determines that it's your time to cry. Isn't that amazingly awful? I think it truly is. Truly is. And Dana said, I've only started realizing it about 3 months ago. Very confusing and overwhelming. It is. It truly is. And first of all, we have to go into that confusion and that overwhelm. And we have to say, okay, this is a gift from the past. I'm going to take everything I can from this gift to learn how to not have this be the functioning method in my life. And then I'm going to give that gift back to the parent. No, that's yours. It wasn't my stuff. It was never my stuff. It was never for me. That was your stuff. That was you trying to work out your life the way you needed to. It wasn't mine. So very important for us. And so we need to be able to ask for help. And what happens is that relationships are like this. We have two people. And if these two people are strong and healthy and they didn't have hijackal parents, When they come together as two wonderfully unique, whole, and happy human beings, and they join together this way. So they can come apart, but they're better together. Wonderful. And you can get there no matter where you start from. You can get there. But if we've had hijackal parents, we tend to have a relationship like this. We start to, be attracted to that person. We'll do anything for them. We start to lean on them, depend on them, hope that they'll like us, hope that they'll be happy with us. We turn ourselves inside out and upside down, turn ourselves into a pretzel, often sometimes into a doormat, to try and make the other person happy, just like we did, hoping we were going to make our hijackal parent happy, and it didn't happen. And then if two people who have experienced childhood emotional neglect, and I put an article on my Facebook feed at my page, the Relationship Help Doctor on Facebook, by Dr. Johnny's Webb recently, about what happens when two people who have had hijackal parents come together, two people who have experienced childhood emotional neglect, and it looks like this. They're leaning on each other, and yet they're keeping distance, not getting what they really need, but being in this way of, okay, we're going to be distant together. We're going to be fearful together. We recognize that in one another. And we want to get to this place, right? We want to get to the place where we feel whole, where we feel good, and that we can have relationships that we can be in. And if we don't have one, we're absolutely fine. No problem. We prefer this maybe, but we're fine here. That's when we know we're healthy. That's when we know that we've done some good things. Now, if you're not ready to work with me one-on-one, I do have a wonderful membership program. And right now, is brand new, I'm just starting. Right now, you can experience any one of the 3 levels for only $5 for the first month. So if you're looking for support and all, what I've done is I've recreated in the first level of membership, I've recreated something that looks and feels just like being on Facebook. And so the threads are there, the graphics are there, everything is there. You can like things, you can do everything you can on Facebook, but it's safely away from Facebook. Nobody making fake profiles, nobody that, it could be a problem. And what I'm starting to do is to make sure that I have a meeting with every single person before I approve their membership, so that it is a very safe place. So you can find that at optimizecircles.com. Optimizecircles.com. Join in quickly, because the price is going to go up as soon as we hit the deadline, which is in a few weeks. So there's another way for you to be participating in that. And if you join in before the deadline, which is, I think, the end of the first week of May, you get grandfathered in at those very low prices, and they're going to more than double at the beginning of May. So is this making sense to you? Dana says, let me go back up. Dana says, love that imagery. Thank you. You're welcome. I think we do have to have some ways, metaphors and images that we can relate to quickly. And Devin asks, was anyone else told they were ugly when they cry? Well, she'd like to hear from you. I was told I was ugly many times a week, whether I was crying or I was not. And after my parents had both died, I went and looked at all my photographs and all their photographs to see if I really was ugly. My mother used to say to me, it's a good thing you're smart because you're fat and ugly. Not great, right? Didn't grow up thinking anything different, really. I just didn't like my mother much, but back there in the back of my mind was, gotta do everything you can to look good because you're ugly, right? So Dana's asking, was anyone else told they were ugly when they cried? So she'd like to hear from you. And Measure Twice said, no, but I was often told I was too sensitive. Oh, glad you brought that up, because of course you were. Because if you were sensitive and you said something, or you cried, or you dared to have an emotion, They don't want to be bothered with you. So now it's got to be your fault. So you're too sensitive. I'm sorry that happened to you. You know, I say that all the time, but I truly am, because I've been through it. I know what it takes to get through it, to shed all of these untrue messages, to undo them like we're talking about tonight, and to have new messages. And that's what I work with my clients about. So yes, too sensitive. And Devin says, yes, that's true. Because of course, like, oh, there she goes again. She has a need. She has a desire. She's unhappy. She's always wanting to be the center of attention. She's a little drama queen. You know, they say things like that because they don't want to be bothered with you. They're very annoyed if you don't do everything to make them look good. So how dare you be an individual person? So can you hear when I say that, how crazy making that is, and how holding on to that can help you move forward into a new way of being, a new paradigm? And Dana said, and I was often told, how could you think that? I only want what's best for you. Yeah, right. I know you better than anyone else. You need to trust what I tell you. Right, let me define your reality for you. You tiny little child, let me gaslight you from the first moment you can hear. Right, that's what they do. Gaslighting is somebody else telling you what your reality is, what your experience is. And they'll tell you when you say, this is it, they'll say, no, you're wrong. I'll tell you what you're experiencing. I'll tell you what you think. I'll tell you what you feel. So there you go. That's exactly it, Dana. I'll just read that again. Dana said, how could you think that? I only want what's best for you. I know you better than anyone else. You need to trust what I tell you. And what choice do we have as children? Those are the people who are going to keep us safe and fed. We have to trust them. And then they turn out to be so untrustworthy. And when we start to learn that as an adult, or maybe we started figuring it out when we were young, but as we learn that as an adult, it's such a shock. Like, oh my goodness, all these things I was told about myself, and they were all about that parent. They're not true about me. Oh no, that couldn't be right. And we withdraw and we say, oh no, well, you know, my mother didn't have a very good life and my father wasn't a very happy person. And no, it wasn't that. And we try and backtrack. But please slowly keep moving forward toward a better life, because that's what they do. And Devin says, yes, that's so cruel. Yes, it was cruel. It is cruel when parents do that to their children. I know it was cruel of my mother, but of course, a hijackal mother is totally competitive with her daughter. She will fawn all over her son, but she will be totally competitive with her daughter. And so, right from the beginning, I had to be the one who was fat and ugly so that she could feel better, right? Anybody have an experience like that? Any phrases that you were told repeatedly by a hijackal parent? Share them. Alchemy said, my father told both my mother and me we were too sensitive. Sure, that was his way of saying, I don't want to have to bother with you. I'm having my life here. It'll be my way or the highway. I am only giving attention to myself, and you two want attention, or you have needs, or you have feelings. No. The hijackal doesn't want that, doesn't like that. Doesn't even want you to allow you to have that. And it's sad. But once you can realize that, alchemy, that you were told you were too sensitive, but you weren't too sensitive. It was you trying to say, I need something. I think something. I feel something. I'm a person over here. And the hijackal parent goes, squash. No, don't bother me. Don't be a problem to me. Who do you think you are? So in learning to undo those messages, we have to learn from the bottom up. Now, something people might not know about me, you may not know about me, that I started practicing yoga when I was 19 years old, and that's a very long time ago, long before it was hip, current, and trendy. It just made sense to me. And when you think about the chakra system that we talk about in yoga, we think that that root chakra is the chakra of survival. Think how that was attacked. We weren't even supposed to be there. Yes, they want children. They want children because they want to replicate themselves. They want children who will make them look good. They want children so they can have people who will applaud for them. But then little people don't turn out to be such an adoring audience, do they? I mean, what, 18 to 24 months, they learn how to say no. And they're so clear about it. That's a big defining moment if you have a hijackal parent. So Dana said, every time I tempted to go into denial, remembering the gaslighting is what makes me keep going. Great. I'm glad that you found a trigger, a key, a place that you can turn around right away. Because if you had a hijackal parent, you were gaslit. They told you who you were, and they didn't want to hear if you diverted from that. If you had an exploration and you had a discovery about yourself and it wasn't what they wanted you to be, they would squash you like a gnat, and make you feel as though you shouldn't have spoken up, or who do you think you are, or what makes you think you have the right to that. And those are the things that we have to find ways to uncover, when we're doing the healing process. This is so important, this topic tonight, because these are essential pieces that we were given. And we weren't given them and then we just willingly received them. They were shoved down our throats, whether we wanted them or not. And they got in there. So we need these things. We need these ideas. We need these conversations so that we can see that we can do things differently. And there's a very good reason for doing things differently. So Dana said, I struggle with remembering a lot of details. I remember how I felt more easily, and the rest comes back in little bits at a time. Well, that was sheer survival. That happens to many of us, because if we let that deep feeling go in there and those deep memories be etched in there and they were always in front of us, we could barely go on. So that's why that happens. We just try and bury things and get on with each day, and usually we're trying very hard to please a hijackal parent in the midst of all that, and we don't want to believe they don't like us, and we don't want to believe that they don't have time for us, and we don't want to believe that they think we're fat and ugly, or that we ask too much, or that we have inconvenient feelings. We don't want to believe that. We want to believe our parents love us and they have our best interest at heart. Measure Twice said, I have huge amounts of memory loss or memory suppression. Too painful. Yeah, if we were working together, we would only retrieve the memories that would be useful, because we don't have to really understand every last piece. However, if we do have repressed memories of sexual abuse or physical abuse in the extreme, those will come up because we weren't allowed to do anything about it. We couldn't do anything about it when we were little. I was abused when I was small, and I blocked it out because I thought my daddy really loved me. And then when I really recognized it and pieced the story together as an adult, I realized that every Sunday morning, my mother left me in the bed with my father. She went downstairs on the pretense of cooking fish, which smelled, so she would go to the kitchen and shut the door so the smell wouldn't come through. And that was my life. Now, I didn't remember that. I remembered laughing with my dad and things like that. But as I pieced things together, all of a sudden I remembered. And that's when it's worthwhile unearthing those things that have been suppressed, so that you can understand how that impacts all of your relationships, your relationship with the world, your relationship with yourself, your relationship with friends, and your relationship in romantic relationships too. So undoing these messages takes some time. And here's a big key. Ask yourself at this moment in time, what evidence and reality do I have? Evidence, not just a feeling. What evidence do I have that I'm not good enough? That I am not worth spending time with? That I'm too much trouble? That I'm not enough? These are the things I talked about last week. That my job is to please other people, especially the hijackal parent. Or that I'm not smart enough. What evidence and reality do you have that you're not smart enough? Every bit of information and insight is available to you. I have done a huge amount of writing and podcasting and here on YouTube to get you the insights that you need. And in fact, right now, my course, Seeing the Cycles, is available for $20 off until Wednesday night. I know that's a short window. That's Wednesday night, April the 10th, 2019, if you're listening to this after that. But I want you to have that information so much. 13 videos, lots of articles, and 13 worksheets to take you through deep into yourself to find out what was really going on for you. And if you want that program, go to my website, forrelationshiphelp.com, and then click on programs, and then you'll see it. It's called Seeing the Cycles. Now, here's the code to get $20 off. Put in C, S-E-E, clearly, all one word, see clearly. If you use that code, you'll get $20 off that program until Wednesday night. That's another way that you can get it all in one place, because when you're capturing information from podcasts and articles and YouTube videos and all, you get snippets all over. But what I've done is I put it together to help you see the cycles, what it is that manipulative, toxic people do that is crazy making, so that you can identify that's their problem. That's what they do. That's what they did. It is not about me. It's about them. And that allows me to see when they're behaving that way, if they're still in my life. And then I can put up that Teflon shield that I write about and that I have a graphic for, right? That says, okay, here comes the hijackal stuff. I'll put up my Teflon shield, let it all slide off. And I'll just sit over here and go, okay, that's how hijackals behave. Okay, that's a hijackal way of being. And you don't get any coming on you and into you. Very, very important. So that these are ways that you can undo these untrue messages that you've been given. Look for evidence in reality. Is there any evidence in reality that you're incapable? Sure, we can't do everything. I don't know how to fix the toilet, but I can do a lot of other things. It doesn't make me incapable. Makes me incapable of fixing a toilet. Doesn't mean that I personally am an incapable human being. So where is the evidence in reality for these things that we've been told or that we might feel about ourselves? Or they may have told you that you're incompetent. Where's the evidence in reality? You're sitting up, taking nourishment, getting on with life, dealing with people, dealing with children, dealing with finance, dealing with a career, dealing with a home, dealing with all those things. You're not incompetent. You're still alive. Yay. So extinguish that, because there is no evidence in reality for it. And here's another thing. If you find yourself still trying to please other people before you please yourself, and I don't mean instead of that, I mean if you are not according yourself good care and good boundaries that keep yourself safe, don't be going around trying to please other people hoping they're going to like you if you're not demonstrating to yourself that you like you. That's a very big part of the healing process. And when I'm working with my clients, we walk through that because each client is different. So we don't want to be thinking that, our job is to please other humans. Yeah, sometimes we like to do that, but that's not our job. Our job is to be whole, healthy, happy, and complete within ourselves. and to be self-reflective, to know who we are, to know what our values are, what our vision for our life is, what our purpose is, what our beliefs are, and that we are living from them. You know, whether your beliefs are about money or spirituality or relationships, how can you have a picture of what a healthy relationship is like if you've always been with a hijackal, right? Those are things you have to learn. So this is an opportunity to learn. Your job is not to be here to please other people. It's also not your job to live up to the expectations of other people. Now, that's a leap that we have to make, because when we're children, we kind of feel like we have to live up to the expectations of those parents. But when we become an adult, we don't have to do that anymore. And particularly if we had a hijackal parent with crooked thinking and a crooked view of reality, we need to step away from that. Step way away from that. Now, I'm talking a lot, and I'm not seeing anybody commenting or asking a question, so remember that you're free to do that. But these things that I'm mentioning to you go deep. They run really deeply inside. And it may take a little while. You know, maybe the reason you're not commenting is you're thinking about that. Like, how deep is this? Do I do that? Has that affected me to that level? And am I willing now to stand up and become happy, healthy, whole, and ready to have a relationship with the world and other humans that has the hallmarks that I talk about healthy relationships? They need to be equal, reciprocal, and mutual. Those are healthy relationships. I'll talk about those in depth another day. But if we don't know how to have healthy relationships, our first task is to have a healthy relationship with ourselves, and then we can have healthy relationships with other humans. But remember what I said, you are not here to live up the expectations of other people. You're here to be you, beautifully expressed, clearly expressed, with a deep aligned knowing of who you are. And as I said, what your values, your vision for your life, your beliefs and your purposes and challenges and next best steps. You know where you're going and you know who you are. And everybody does much better in life when they do that, when they know those things. But recovering from a hijackal parent means that we've got a much longer territory to traverse to get over to healthy land. Because we've been told these things way before we had rational linear thought. Our parietal lobes and our prefrontal lobes don't even develop till we're after the age of 7. That's where rational logical thought is. So everything that got stuffed into us before that, we didn't have any critical thinking. We didn't have any experience. We were brand new. We just got here. So we had to believe what the giants told us. And particularly, we believed what the giants told us about ourselves, right? So tell me what you're thinking. Tell me what you're realizing or recognizing now. Let's have a little chat before we have to go. And just even give us a little morsel of something that you may have remembered, or something that you realize that needs a little change, something that's going on. Because you have the ability to do that. And I don't want you to ever go through life thinking that what a hijackal parent told you about who you are is the truth of who you are. It definitely isn't. And you can make that change. So Dana said, it's so nice to hear that. Thank you. Well, you're so welcome. Because I want you to blossom into fullness for yourself. I want it for you. I want you to understand that. Do you know, I already had a master's degree before I really started understanding what was going on. Really just getting a clue. Because I was already successful in doing wonderful things and raising children and living life and, you know, getting somewhere in life. But I was sliding over that hijackal input, right? Because I was running on anger. I was so angry with them that I could do anything. but I did not figure out the deep, dark pieces and the tiny little threads and get those tentacles off me, pry them off. I didn't even know they were there. And I had to learn how to do that. And there wasn't much help for that. So I had to create the way to do it. And that's why I do the work that I do. Because I've been there, done that. I have the nasty t-shirt and I have the horrible video. I have it all. It's all there. So Devin says, I feel pretty sane these days. Great. Good. Great. Because the crazy-making behavior of hijackals will really cause you to question your sanity, won't it? But Devin goes on to say she's just disappointed that I deal with so many people that seem to be replaying their hijackal parent. Well, that's exactly what you'll do, because you don't know any differently until you come into the conscious awareness that that didn't serve me very well. I don't like the messages I was given. I'm going to do my own work. If not, we're on auto repeat. That's what's going to happen, and it is sad. They are replaying their hijackal parents, and they will do that. And this is one big problem that we have, that in families, the chances of a hijackal having at least one hijackal child are high. They're high because that's the way the child learned to get the parental attention, and so they take that on. And there is good research to show that hijackals become hijackals in the first 24 months of life. Now, it can be a lot later, but the seeds are planted then. So we don't know what went in there at 24 months old, do we? We didn't know that. It wasn't conscious in any level. So that's what happens. They will replay their hijackal parents. And Alchemy said, I never really understood money because my father acted like he made all the money and was the biggest boss. Well, of course, hijackals have to be huge, right? They are the best at everything. They are the largest, the most, the best, the greatest. Everything that is a superlative is what a hijackal thinks of themselves. So therefore, I can understand completely why your father thought that he was the best at making money. He had the most money, he had the most brains. He figured it out, and everybody else was lesser. And of course, you as a child would have been way down, way down. Dana said, your resources are very helpful. Thank you for all you do and for giving us hope of healing. You are so welcome. You know, I say often that helping people understand these things and to stop tolerating abuse is what gets me up in the morning, flips my skirt, and floats my boat. I really want you to know that life can be much better no matter how it began. And this is important to me. This is why I do my work. And that's why I love it when people come over to the membership program, because they're saying, I value this work. I want to go deeper. I want to keep this relationship. And it's very inexpensive over there, but it takes it off Facebook. I know people are used to having things at no cost, but, you know, it's a valuable resource. But if you want to go deeper into your own healing, come over to the memberships. Remember, you find that at optimizedcircles.com, and I hope you do it really soon so you get grandfathered in at the low prices. So Devin says, they are the greatest. Oh, are you talking about my resources, Devin? I'm glad you feel that way if that's what you're talking about. Remember, I have 2 podcasts. One's called Emotional Savvy, and the other's called Save Your Sanity. So wherever you like to get your podcasts, you'll find it. Emotional Savvy, and in particular, Save Your Sanity, because that's the one about hijackals and toxic relationships only. Emotional Savvy talks about larger relationship issues, but Save Your Sanity is all about hijackals and other toxic relationships. So any questions before we leave? Any comments you'd like to make? Anything that I have not answered that you wish you had, or something that was an aha for you tonight and that you will go away thinking about? I'd love to see that and make sure that you're complete with tonight's live stream. I think I've given you the links to everything that you could have, that you could find that could help you further. I'd just love to see you apply to be part of optimizedcircles.com. If you have topics you'd like me to discuss, please put them in the chat right now, or come on to my Facebook page, Relationship Help Doctor, and then you can, talk to me right there and tell me what topics you'd like, or go to my face on page book, my page on Facebook that's called Relationship Help Shows. And you can say there what you would like as well, because I'd like to meet the very topics that you need, and make sure that Devin says, oh, yes, you're fabulous. I was joking about hijackals, thinking they are the greatest. All right, thanks for clearing that up. That's good to know, and I appreciate you saying that. This is very important to me. I know what a difference it made in my life to have that background, and what a difference it made to come to understanding that I could have a healthy, happy, whole way of being, that I want to get up in the morning and talk about these things with you. I'm very grateful for that. Oh, yes, the delay on the chat. Thank you, Devin, for saying thank you to me. I hope you all make it a beautiful week, create a beautiful week. Think about these things and grow beyond your upbringing. That's what's important. You don't have to be who they told you that you are. And that's absolutely key. So take good care. Come back next week. Invite your friends to come along. That would be a gift to them. They may have questions. Tell them to listen to a replay or two so they can get the idea of what we do here on Monday evenings. And I will see you again. Make sure you've subscribed, because there's a subscribe button there, so that you get a reminder an hour before each Monday evening live stream. So take good care, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.